Hello, everyone. Jax West from Stephen Avery Project, Justice with Jax, and MAM Gossip. We are live today. What's today's date? June 3rd. It is 1 p.m. Central Time, Chicago time, my time. And decided to go live today for just general discussion, questions, comments about the case, and then to also talk about the upcoming rally we have next month that will be at Waupun. So if you've got anything you would like to discuss about Stephen's case, fire away. Something where I'm always asked when I go live is, who am I? So I am not related to the Avery family. I am just a supporter, like all y'all out there who saw Making a Murderer and believe that Stephen and Brendan are innocent. So I am no relation to the family. I do not currently speak to Stephen. I have once upon a time, and I've visited him a couple of times. Let me see, where's my picture with Stephen? There's a picture with Stephen, and here's a picture with Stephen. So, but I don't currently speak to Stephen. Hello, Natalie. Yeah, I know, it's hard to keep track all the different groups. Sup, cat? Nicole from England. So, yes, is there any hope in getting Stephen out? There's always hope. But here in the States, our legal system, which I'm sure you're already aware of, is horrible. And you can lock somebody up pretty quick for something they didn't do, but then it takes years upon years to get them out. It's a total cat and mouse game with the state, where you have to show new evidence that wasn't used in the original trial in order to try and get an evidentiary hearing or a new trial, or that there's enough to just open the door and let the innocent go free. But when you have the level of corruption that is involved in Stephen's case, everybody is trying to make sure that door stays closed. But Kathleen Zellner is the best there is on freeing the wrongfully convicted. She has freed, I believe it's 20 people. And that's just her. You know, she's not the Innocence Project that has, chapters all over the country and tons of different legal minds there. It is her and her associate Doug, and then the people they have working for them at Kathleen T. Zellner and Associates. And so 20 people is a lot. And Kathleen has said before, I believe the number is, on average, it takes 15 years to free somebody. And Kathleen did not come on to Stephen's case until 2016. So, but Kathleen does not take a case unless she is positive the person is innocent and that there is science to prove that. So I know a lot of people will think that Kathleen has lost faith in this case or that she's going to be leaving. No, it's just there's not always something going on in the case to be out in the news. It's a whole lot of hurry up and wait. So just know that Kathleen is looking under every stone. And even what we know, what's been released, is not all that Kathleen knows. Even Steven doesn't know all that Kathleen knows. She's not showing all of her cards. So we just have to wait. And then we've just had the last year and a half of COVID that slowed everything down. Everything's starting to open back up here in the States. So let's just hope we get some movement for Steven. But so there is still hope. And hello, Becca and Charlene and Cindy. Cindy says they really don't have any evidence against them. Correct. There's nothing that isn't suspicious. All right. We know that Brendan's confession is coerced. I know there are guilters out there. Say hello to the guilters because they'll be watching this. And I'm sure they're going to be posting at some point during this, as they always do, to troll. Ignore the trolls. Don't feed the trolls. Brendan was coerced into that false confession. All the alleged evidence that they have against Steven is all suspicious. All found by the same people that are involved in putting Steven in prison the first time for something he didn't do, and were in the process of being deposed in his $36 million lawsuit. So, a spare key that has Steven's DNA on it, but not Teresa Halbach's, that was not found in his teeny tiny trailer after how many searches? No, and then Lank and Colborn are there when it's found. Bones in the burn pit that they don't take any pictures of. They don't allow the coroner on the premises. That they don't have anything that says, without a doubt, those are Teresa Halbach's bones even. You have a magic bullet, or bullet casing, bullet shell, whatever you want to call that thing, that after how many searches of that garage, months, they don't find until February 27th or 28th. No dust on the bullet. No bone on the bullet. Something red, like it could have been shot into the wood of the red garage. And oh look, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is on the scene when the magic bullet is found. So, right, they have nothing. There is nothing to show that Teresa Halbach was ever in Steven's trailer. It's a trailer, not even a double wide. It's just a teeny tiny little trailer that, and I do this all the time in live videos. My hair's up right now, but I can just go like this. I don't think you can see on camera, and pull my hair out. Okay. I shed like a mofo. So Teresa Halbach is allegedly handcuffed and shackled to that bed and raped by not one but two people. Her hair is cut. Her throat is slit. And there's nothing in that trailer to show that she was there. And nothing in that trailer to show that Brendan was there. There is nothing to prove that Steven did this. Period. Judith. Yeah, Judith, it's upsetting that the evidence shows that Stephen and Brendan are innocent, but the system sucks. Alicia, I just read your home state is making a law to prevent cops from lying during interrogation. Yes. I So I am in Illinois. I am in a Chicago suburb. I actually live the town next to Kathleen's office. Her office is in Downers Grove. Um, we just had the end of the spring session down in Springfield, Illinois, our capital. And there's always a flurry of activity at the very end of the spring session. That's when bills are really getting voted on. And yeah, they did pass that we cannot here interrogate juveniles and lie to them. And that was one of the biggest things I learned watching Making a Murderer is I assumed, and I know what they say about the word assume, that you can't take a juvenile and question them without a parent's knowledge or consent or their legal adult, it's, and then the whole lying thing. I don't, I hate that. I really don't think cops should be allowed to lie to you to just try to trick you into saying something. And it was just one of the biggest takeaways I had. And my son, I think he was 20 when Making a Murderer came out. And so even though he's 20, I had to say to him, and my son, and this isn't me just being the mom thinking my kid is better than they are, but my son is a good kid. He's 28, but he's my kid. Good, he's a good kid, never been in trouble, whatever. But I still had to say to him, if you're ever questioned by the police for any reason, lawyer. And it's something that I worked on early on when soon after Making a Murderer came out. There was this petition that we started at Free Brendan. I'm an admin at Free Brendan. And so it's called the Juvenile Interrogation Protection Law. And so so Free Brendan is run by an organization called Injustice Anywhere that are advocates for the wrongfully accused. And they've got lawyers on their board, and so they're the ones that wrote the petition. But when we were putting together what we wanted in this petition and what we would want a law to be, it was originally saying we want a parent or a lawyer present. But I talked with Laura Nyrider, one of Brendan's attorneys, and she was also one of the attorneys for Damian Eccles from the West Memphis 3. And so I was sending her the language of the bill and the petition and everything to get her notes on it. And so something she suggested that really rung true to me was that it should not be a parent in the room. It should be a lawyer, because a parent isn't necessarily the best advocate for the juvenile for several different reasons. And so when I thought about that, I'm like, absolutely right. Because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the laws. I don't pretend to know the laws. I'm not basically a lawyer. I'm just a person, right? And 2, if you accuse my son of doing something I know he didn't do, I am quite catty. I am very passive aggressive. and Smurfy. I try and replace swear words with the word Smurf because Facebook keeps cracking down on posts that have anything nasty in it. So I might go nuts in the room that you're accusing my son of something that I know he didn't do. So that's not helping him that I'm being a Smurf hole to the police, right? So it should be a lawyer that's in there. And that's what brings us also to something that Steven says in the first part of Making Murderer is poor people lose all the time. So if you can't afford a good lawyer, and especially if you're getting one appointed to you, like Len Kaczynski for poor Brendan, they're working for the state and don't necessarily care about you just clearing their docket. So it has to be a lawyer, and hopefully you can find the way to pay for somebody other than a public defender. And I'm not trying to dog all public defenders, because I know there's plenty who, you know, are there for the right reasons and really want to help the people who can't afford the greatest legal representation. But bottom line, it needs to be a lawyer that's in the room with the juvenile. And then the other thing that Laura suggested, which I never would have thought of, is that the lawyer does not have to be in person. And when we did this, it's, you know, years ago, so it's prior to COVID, and there was, I don't think Zoom even existed then, you know, so it's before that. But so the lawyer needs to be able to Skype in, to now Zoom in, however, or be on a speakerphone, because, you know, yeah, I live in a Chicago suburb, so it's easy, you know, I can throw a stick and find a lawyer here. But if you live somewhere out in the country or whatever, and say your kid is out doing something mischievous on a Friday night at 2 a.m. and he's taken into custody, well, they're going to hold him now until Monday, Tuesday, whatever. How long is it going to take for a lawyer to be able to get there? So needs to be able to do it somehow electronically. But so this is something, though, that most states here don't have it. So it is acceptable, it is legal to do to Brendan what they did. It's not morally right, but do they have morals? Let me screw up. It scrolled, so I missed if anybody had some comments. Nana, I've got Nana saying thumbs up. Oh man. Emmanuel says, "What's the news with Steven and Brendan?" Well, Stevens, there's been the recent filings that Kathleen has done with the new witness, and so we're waiting for the court to rule on that, to see if there can be, at the very least, an evidentiary hearing for Steven, or maybe a new trial. Brendan's case is a lot different than Steven's. Brendan doesn't have many options left. You know, his case has gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court chose not to hear his case. And the Supreme Court doesn't hear, I can't remember what the number is. I don't retain numbers well, but it's a very teeny tiny percentage of all cases that are sent to the Supreme Court that they will hear. So in Brendan's case, I know there's been the big push to try and get the governor to let him go. But the governor has already said that he won't let Brendan go. The rules for clemency is that you needed to have served X amount of your sentence, and Brendan isn't at that point. So the current governor will not even consider Brendan. And even if Kathleen Zellner was able to get Stephen out, it doesn't mean Brendan gets to walk out the door with him. I always refer people to another one of Kathleen's cases, the Ryan Ferguson case. It's called, the documentary is called Dream Killer. And so that was a guy who had a dream that he and his buddy Ryan committed this murder. 2 years after this murder had happened, he has this dream, and the two of them were found guilty on that. And Kathleen was able to free Ryan, but Charles is still in prison. So, and the tough thing with Brendan is he confessed. We know it's not a real confession, but he confessed. Natalie says Kathleen Zellner is Stephen's, and now it's gone. See, when this many people comment, it then starts scrolling comments up and won't let me go back to them. So sorry about that. I'm just scanning through now to see if okay, and I covered Brendan as well. Hi, Maz. And hello, Angie. I agree with you, Rebecca. There should be a time limit for courts reply. That they can take as long as they want, that's bull smurf. I'm sorry. To me, that's cruel and unusual punishment. You're stealing more years from innocent people. And look, in Stephen's case also, well, and it's not just Stephen's case, it's anybody who's wrongfully convicted. They're family members. You know, so for Stephen, his mother now has dementia and is in a home. And so chances are, whenever he's released, she's not even going to know who he is. That is a huge travesty. And he should have never been there to begin with. And lost all these years with his mother. And then you also have the 18 years before that they took him. And he lost his wife and his kids in that too, and has never really had the opportunity to be a free man, because he was put in the first time when he was 22? He's never had the opportunity to live as a free adult. He's out for 2 years and then they put him back in. Charlene brings up Netflix and the Colborn case. Yeah, so far the court has said that Colborn's case can proceed. What a garbage case that is. Because Colborn did what was shown in Making a Murderer. They didn't make him out to be anything different. And how has it hurt his life? Oh, you get some hate mail? Oh, poor baby. What about the hate mail Stephen and Brendan get? What about the hate mail Dolores gets? What about the years stolen from them? Colborn hasn't changed his life at all. His life hasn't suffered from this. And you did those things. You called in the plates when you were looking at the car. You know you did. Oh, you were shaking that bookcase so violently that was able to get this magic spare key to pop out the back turn a corner and land in a space that also, I mean, I don't know if Steven's slippers had magnets, but was able to move the slippers to a different spot than they were. And then also, you know, he was shaking that bookcase so violently that then all the stuff was put back in the bookcase, and even change put back on top of the table. They didn't do any of that to the rest of that trailer. They tore that place apart. They ruined that trailer. Didn't care. Stuff went everywhere. But that one bookcase, oh, let's put all these books back in. Not just, even if you were to do it half-assed and just shoving them in there, they're all facing the right way. It's all nice. And, oh, let's treat this magic bookcase with some respect. So answer for those things, Colborne. Improve your damages. There's no damages to Andy Colborne. This is a stupid lawsuit. And it's cases like that clogging up the system. Then you've got real cases like Stephen and Brendan should be going free, that they just have to sit around and wait. Yo, Bryce. Nope, they don't have any evidence or a proper confession. Agreed, Tristan. Cat, a spare key that only has his DNA on it is suspicious as hell, and it was planted. And we know that Kathleen, because she does her homework and then some, you know, so they had Stephen hold the key for a certain period of time, let go of the key, all that, trying to replicate how to get that DNA on that key. The only way you're going to have Stephen's alleged DNA on that key and no Teresa Halbach is if somebody washed the key first, making sure whoever is the one doing this corrupt stuff, that they haven't left anything behind. And now let's, you know, rub Stephen's whatever on there to put his DNA on there. And this is her living, driving around, Teresa Halbach driving around taking pictures of people. So she is constantly getting in her car, putting the key in the ignition and turning it, and key. So why is there none of her DNA on there? Why is it her spare key and not her usual daily driver key? Two different people testified. Tom Pierce, the guy at the photography studio, and her friend that she had gone on a vacation with in August, that Teresa was petrified of losing her keys. So it was a joke that was made with the friend of making a what do you call the thing? I'm telling you, I've got my own dementia coming on. The blue thing that Teresa's keys were on, that they made one out of duct tape or electrical tape or something. She is very paranoid of losing her keys. So why would she be going around with a key ring that only has her spare key on it? Where is her house key? Where is the key to the photography studio? Why wouldn't all those keys be on the same ring if she is somebody that is so scared of losing her keys? You wouldn't have multiple sets of keys to keep track of. There's just no way. All kinds of suspicious. People talking about the bullet. And so the bullet had a waxy-like substance on it. Chapstick. Chapstick would also have your DNA And it makes no sense on why somebody was sent to Teresa Halbach's house and was asked to get chapstick, her toothbrush, dirty underwear, and a vibrator, collecting it as evidence, and then you brought it to Avery Salvage. Why are you bringing, cross-contaminating and bringing stuff from one location to the alleged murder scene? So it's clear to me that that is planted. It just is. Joshua, Bobby and Scott. Oh, and it's gone now. Sorry, Joshua. You'll have to say it again if it was something for me to comment on. Dust was on the bed frame when Teresa was tied up, says Natalie, and she didn't fight or move dust. Right. Yeah. And there was no marks on the bed frame from handcuffs as well. Nothing to show that anything that Brendan was manipulated to say by Dietering, Fassbender, and Michael O'Kelly, none of those things happened. Or Ken Kratz's sexual deviant fantasy news conference. There is nothing to prove any of those things happened. Natalie saying needs to be massive protests. Well, here's the thing though with protests. People in politics, governors, states attorneys, sheriff departments, they're elected. Those people don't care what people have to say that can't vote for them. So me being here in Chicago and going and trying to tell those people what they should do, they don't care what I have to say. They only care what the constituents say. And all they want to do is keep getting elected and collect that paycheck. So, and don't get me wrong, I am an activist and I have organized a lot of protests in my time. But in Stephen's case, a protest isn't going to get him out. Now, we do our rally. And so a rally is different than a protest. You know, so when we go to the prison, we are there showing our support for Stephen and that we believe he is innocent. That is the purpose of it. And since we do it at the prison, we like it that there's the opportunity for Stephen to hear or see, don't know for sure, but the possibility that he could see that he's got supporters there at the prison. So that is the primary purpose of it. But there, make no mistake, you know, having the rally there or anywhere is not going to free them. The pressure has to come from their constituents. So the people of Wisconsin have to rise up. They have to contact their legislators, their state representatives, their state senators, their U.S. senators, their governor. And I know there's people who like tweet daily to the governor of Wisconsin trying to get him to free Brendan. That's just going to make him double down and not do anything. Because again, all those people that are tweeting at him can't vote for him. So he doesn't care about you. I'm sorry to say it, but that's how it is. Natalie, Barb is useless. Needs to be an advocate, social worker, or a lawyer. An advocate would work too, I think. But it is something to be said for, it has to be somebody who knows the law. Yes, Maz. Stephen sometimes can't keep his mouth shut on things. So, because that's something that Buting told me once. You can't fill Stephen in on everything. Plus, Stephen is surrounded by a bunch of people who are not very trustworthy. So these are people who have sold stories to the tabloids, sell his letters, that kind of stuff. So it is a worry that he could tell those people something and then they'll put it out there. Emmanuel, this case, both Stephen and Brendan's cases are on a state level. Murder is not a federal crime. So that's why a president can't do anything on the case. Only a governor can. So it doesn't matter who the president is, what party they're from. A president can't do anything. Only the governor can, because it is a state issue. Ricky asks who else thinks it's because he was suing for the $36 million. I think that at the beginning of this, because I firmly believe that those people were framing Stephen, but I do think they also thought he was guilty, and that they were afraid due to that lawsuit they would never be able to get him on this case. So they had nothing, so they were gonna make something. And getting Stephen and ending that lawsuit was the cherry on top. But I do feel they also learned at some point that it's obviously not Stephen, but they've already started that, the ball in motion, and they weren't about to go back now. And so it was full steam ahead in framing Stephen. So I think that they probably know that it is Bobby Dassey, and some deals were made. Yeah, Kat. Oh God, meow meow. Kaczynski. Just look at the cast of characters in this case. Lachinsky, Kratz. Despicable people who have done despicable things, and they're the ones that are going to say somebody is guilty of something and put them away. Michael Kelly, Dietering in Fassbender. Horrible. Maz is pointing out, if you do research on this, they want the Avery land. Was it Deanna? I'd never heard of it. Of Zoom. Good to know. 8%, by the way. Thank you, Andy. 8% of cases submitted to the Supreme Court are accepted. See how teeny tiny that is? Bryce asked, do you know if the case can ever be resubmitted to the U.S. Supreme Court? I'm assuming, Bryce, that if there's new evidence, As long as you have new evidence, you can bring it back with the new evidence. I think. But somebody correct me on that. I agree with you, Rosalba. Not the people's courts, and not saying it as in people's court, the Judge Judy and TV show court. It is supposed to be our system, and it doesn't help us, especially if you're poor. Okay, so Andy's asking about the next season of Making a Murderer. So there is nothing known for sure on another season of Making a Murderer. Obviously, the first and second parts were very successful for Netflix. So there's no reason why there wouldn't be a third, but something major has to happen. So absolutely, if either one of them were to get a new trial or released or something like that, I'm sure the documentarians will be there in a flash and cover that. So, but, that is the question we're asked the most often here on Stephen Avery Project is, when is the next season coming out? And so just think about that, on how long we go between seasons and on how much you're waiting for and you really want a new season. And now think about if you're Stephen or Brendan, just sitting there all that time trying to be free. So us just waiting for a documentary is nothing compared to what those two guys are going through. Hello, Roger from Canada. Colin says he can't wait for Colborn to be deposed and made to testify in his libel case. Yeah, I hope we can watch that. Popcorn will be a must, because I am convinced when Colborn was being questioned about the plate, and Strang had him so good there. It's like, oh, let's go to the tape, shall we? You're the one that said this first. All that. I think he was so close to caving. I think you can push him over the edge. So, Colin, I hope we'll be able to see that. Holly, if I'm able to discuss the latest with Stephen's case after Zellner filed her motion in April, what happens next? So we're waiting for the court. I have done live videos on that motion where we read the motion and discussed it, but it's all just waiting for the dumb court. Now, that there's this new witness, and then you had the state trying to say, oh, Kathleen can't come back and say this now, blah blah. So it's now just waiting. But if something comes out anytime there's a filing, we work to get it as quickly as we can. And then we put it up here on Stephen Avery Project and discuss it. So, and if you see something that is filed or whatever before we do, send it our way. And then, if need be, I buy the filing. It costs me 25 cents a page or something like that. Which I never understand why it costs me something per page, like it's being printed and sent to me when they just email it to me and it's electronic. But whatever. Ooh, Maz is hoping Colborn's wife, once the divorce goes through, will start talking for money. Well, I will have zero sympathy, though, for anybody who comes forward at this point. You know, I will look at those people always with disdain, that you knew that these two guys are in prison and that they're innocent, and you have information that could free them and didn't. But I highly recommend, if you do, contact Kathleen Zellner and see if she can work out some kind of deal for you. You can go to her website, KathleenTZellner.com. She has a page there for Stephen, and there is a specific phone number and a specific email address just for Stephen's case. So reach out to Kathleen Zellner, tell her what you know, and get yourself a deal. Angie asks, do I honestly think Teresa is dead? Do I think she's dead? Yes. Because I really don't think of Manitowoc Sheriff's Department as being, I mean, I know they're corrupt AF, but I don't see them as having the money and all this, that it's something like Teresa has been able to now get moved to another country or another state or whatever and have a new life, and you know that Manitowoc has paid for all this to happen. I just don't see that happening. And so all I know is allegedly as of October 31st 2005, Teresa Halbach has not been seen again. So why would she have no contact with her family, etc.? So that's why I believe she is dead. How she died, what happened to her before she died, all that, I don't know. But if evidence came forward that she is alive, you know, if all of a sudden she came riding in on her white horse and saying, okay, sorry, I'm here, I wouldn't be, oh my God, I'm shocked. Because the only thing I can be absolutely sure of is whatever has happened to Teresa Halbach, Stephen and Brendan had nothing to do with it. And in my opinion, the evidence that we have, the actual science, the actual proof, all points to Bobby Dassey with an assist by Scott Toddock. Kat brings up the groin swab. We've been reading, so we have a subgroup called MAM Gossip. MAM, some people don't realize, MAM stands for Making a Murderer. So we have MAM Gossip. So in Gossip for the last 2 weeks, we have been reading this book, John Ferrick's Wrecking Crew. A lot of people misunderstand and think because Kathleen Zellner is on the cover that this is her book. It is not. John Ferrick wrote it. Now, he did talk with Kathleen Zellner in writing this book, but it's John Ferrick's book. And so it's going into a lot on the groin swab, that there was no reason when they took Stephen into custody. He was taken into custody for being a felon and having in his possession a firearm, which is something that Stephen is confused about. In his trailer, there's a gun rack over his bed, and there was this Glen Marlin, I don't know, rifle that was up there. Well, Stephen was renting that trailer. The trailer, most of its contents, the property it's on, the garage, is not owned by the Avery family. It was owned by Rollie Johnson. Rollie was a friend of Alan Avery's, and he wanted some place to park his hunting trailer. And so Alan sold him that piece of the land, and he put his trailer there and put a garage there. And so that rifle hanging above the bed in Stephen's trailer is Rolly's, and Rolly testified to that. Rolly testified that he would shoot that gun all over the salvage yard and into his garage.
My apologies. I couldn't hear what you said.
Siri thought I was talking to her. So most of the things in that trailer were Rolly's. The bed was Rolly's. I think the only things that Jody had moved in there was a bed and a computer desk. Everything else is his. All right. Then Stephen has a hunting license. Why would they give him a hunting license if he's not allowed to own a gun? So he was confused on all of that, but Stephen also wasn't really a hunter. So that gun, he didn't pay any attention to. He should have. He is a felon. By law, he was not allowed to be in possession of a firearm, that hanging over his bed. But that's what they took him into custody for. And they're taking him for groin swabs for having a gun on the premises? Why is there? They knew nothing of what happened allegedly to Teresa Halbach at that time. And then you've got Fassbender and Wiegert go with him to watch. I don't know if they wanted to look at Stephen's junk or what, but they're in the room when the nurse is doing the groin swab, and then they asked to be handed the groin swab. And then one of them pretended to throw it into the receptacle. And when it was like, oh, our bad, it's not on the warrant to do this, so legally we can't do this. But Stephen never saw him actually throw it away. So was that groin swab used to plant Stephen's alleged DNA? Or was it just swapped out? And now you put a different name on it saying, oh, this is what we found on the door latch. On the car door latch. This is a swab from that. Oh, look, it's Stephen. Lanyard. Thank you, people. Yeah, I know. I'm far behind in reading your the comments from when I talked. Sherry Colhane, big hair, never should have been allowed anywhere near this case. Absolutely, Kat. She was part of the first case against Stephen. She sat on the DNA to free him, to keep him in there extra long. She was told to find her in his home or garage. Nope, she never should have been anywhere near that. 7 pairs of panties. Yeah, Kat. Yeah. But these people are quite perverted, in my opinion. Jane fears that Teresa was murdered to order. It was very convenient. She was murdered after going to Stephen's salvage yard. I wonder if she was murdered simply to frame Stephen. I don't know why I give Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department the benefit of this doubt. I just really can't see them killing some innocent girl for this. You know, there's other people, I'm sure, that they maybe could feel good about getting rid of and blaming it on Stephen than some innocent girl. Unless, because, you know, Teresa did have kind of a risky lifestyle. I know people don't like you to say these things like you're attacking the victim. But, you know, she was taking boudoir photos. She did insert herself in after taking a risky photos of a married couple. She then had a three-way with the married couple, and then eventually the man dumped the wife for Teresa. So I don't know. Did she take pictures of a cop and their wife or girlfriend or something? I don't know. I agree with you, Baz. Kratz should be behind bars. Manuel says, if those bones are not Teresa's, where is Teresa really? Teresa's mother does not demonstrate the impact that such an outrage would entail. So, I always defend the Halbach family on this. We're all raised differently. And so some people are raised that you do not show weakness and you're not going to cry in public. So while she doesn't react the way that many people think she should, to me it doesn't mean that she's not grieving the loss of her daughter. So that's something I understand why people think that, but I defend that. If the bones are not Teresa's, where is she? A smelter? That would be my first thought. And gotten rid of from Scott Taddock's work from the smelter there. Maureen says, can it be taken to another state? I'm not sure how that works on when you want to change a venue. How you could get it out of state. I don't know. Angie thinks there's something suspicious about the cousin of Teresa who was found dead the same day Teresa was last seen. I believe I believe that it turns out that Carmen Bootwell is not Teresa's cousin. That's something that people think, but she's not. You'll have to go to Reddit for that. But could it still be Carmen Bootwell's bones that they planted? Absolutely. Because why did law enforcement offer to take care of the body for the family? Hello, Nick. Who do I think sold that letter and passed it off as Brendan's? Oh, I remember hearing something about this. But I don't remember the full story, Holly. But it's really sad that people do that. I've got, it's still downstairs from when my computer was there. Here's a letter from Stephen. I don't know why somebody would you're not a supporter. And it's something I stand by all the time, that there's a difference between supporters and fans. That's also why there is Stephen Avery Project and then MAM Gossip. Stephen Avery Project, this is the biggest Making a Murderer page there is on Facebook. It was the first one. It's the biggest. But the bulk of the people that come here, all they know about the case is what they saw on Netflix. They don't know all the teeny tiny little details and have never fully researched the case. That's one of the reasons for the subgroup MAM Gossip. That's where you get the deep dive into everything into the case. And so many people that are here would have no clue on that stuff. And it's a lot of drama. It's a lot of craziness. So we, for the most part, keep it off of Stephen Avery Project. You have to join MAM Gossip to get really into what is happening in this case. But there's a difference between supporters and fans. There's people who just love Making a Murderer, and that's all they care about is the show and when is the show coming back. And then there's the people who have been really affected by seeing this injustice that has happened to Stephen and Brendan and want to see them freed, and they're reading the transcripts, they're listening to interrogations and all of that. Or there's people that just worship people that they have seen on Making a Murderer, even though they're not worthy of that infatuation. So we give it to you straight in MAM gossip on what's going on. So whoever sold that letter and passed it off as Brendan's, yeah. Natalie, I believe that bookcase is still in existence, but what they do with all of this stuff, because they're desperate to keep everything away from Kathleen. No, Kat, the governor of Wisconsin's not going to do anything to help them. Andy Teresa's ex-boyfriend does look guilty. So does her brother, and so does Scott Blodorn. I do believe those three boys know something, that they worked with Manitowoc in framing Stephen. That they also thought they were framing a guilty man. That they were told by law enforcement that Stephen Avery did this to Teresa, and we're never going to get him because of this current lawsuit. And so I believe that is why that you see those three stooges in and out of the crime scene over multiple days. Why are those people on the login sheets going in and out of Avery Salvage Yard? The Averys aren't allowed to go in and get medication for Dolores, but those three guys are in and out there. And you've got Scott Blodorn was having sex with Teresa and living with her, and his friend is Ryan, who's her past boyfriend. I don't know. So I do think there is something suspicious with those three guys. Once upon a time, I did think Ryan Hilgas was the one responsible for what happened to Teresa, but as the evidence has come out, it's all pointing to Bobby Dassey. Oh, Holly, I hope for sure when Stephen and Brendan are released that they are able to sell their stories and make some money off of it. But they have signed the rights to their stories over to Netflix. So, I don't know all that they will be able to do. For the first part of Making a Murderer, they were given a very small amount. I think they were each given only like $5,000 for the first one, which, nobody knew it was going to do what it did. Now for the second one, they get a percentage upon release. So they should both be coming into some money. And hopefully when Netflix makes whatever else once they're released, that they get really good deals for that as well. I'm hoping that they will be surrounded by people who actually will look out for their best interests, Stephen and Brendan's best interests, not the family, not the fans, but Stephen and Brendan. I know as long as Laura Nyrider has any control over Brendan's case, I have complete faith that she's going to make sure that Brendan will be okay. I worry a lot about what would happen to Brendan upon his release, because everybody in his life are not good and helping to cover for the real killer. And in doing so, they keep Brendan behind bars. So yeah, they're definitely going to need people who truly care about them and want to make sure that they're okay. Not, ooh, I hope they get money and they give me some. Colin, but there's nothing to film right now. That's why they wouldn't be filming a third season right now. You know, you've got these filings that Kathleen has made, and the evidence that she's uncovered, and witnesses that have come forward, but there's not a there. You know, and you've got Dolores is now has dementia and is in a home. And all the drama that is surrounding that, with the family trying to keep Dolores away from Stephen, and trying to get restraining orders against Stephen and saying he's harassing them. You know, so there's little things that go on now, but they can film that on the fly if, you know, another case, another trial is ordered. Yeah, I think if Strang had been able to continue, he would have gotten Coburn. I agree. Paul, state corruption. Yep. No, Emmanuel. Injustice. It's bad here. It's really bad. And Lisa says, I'm starting to give up hope, and I hear ya. You know, that's why I'm like, I'm hopeful. There's always hope, but it's rough. The Avery law, Colin, was scrapped right after that. Everybody wanted to disassociate with Stephen. With the Wisconsin Innocence Project, everybody, Penny Bernstein, everybody abandoned Stephen immediately, which infuriates me, because them of all people should know you should look into it more than just listening to what Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department has to say about Stephen. So it doesn't help at all. Victoria is asking, yes, we talked about it a little earlier, about, you're talking about Andy Colborn's case, that the court has ruled that his case can continue for now. Yeah. I really don't think that Netflix or the documentarians or anybody are going to be found guilty of anything on that. Yeah, Kelly hid him from his lawyers. Yeah. His lawyers spent what? It was like the whole day trying to find where Stephen was, and they wouldn't tell him. Disgusting. Maz, I don't know. Yeah, so Rollie Johnson died in the last year, right? I know he had cancer. He has a daughter. So I don't know if his daughter now owns the property. I'm sure somebody, you know, all you researchers out there can try and look up, you know, that transaction, or, you know, see. I don't believe it is Avery Properties, but what do I know? Avery Salvage, somebody was doing all the research on who owns what. And so Chuck Avery is the sole owner of Avery Salvage. I thought before it was Chuck and Earl, but it's not. Chuck bought it all. So Earl works there, kind of, but Chuck is the one that owns it all. The parents haven't owned it in a long time. Yeah, Natalie, that comment that Peterson made, it'd be easier to kill him. Yikes. Natalie says she is a cousin but very far removed. So Carmen Bootwell's like a 12th cousin or something. Yeah. So yeah, Veronica, it is really weird about how then you had Ryan Hilgas, Scott Blodorn, and Mike Hallbach, getting into Teresa's phone messages, and then emails were deleted. They got into our messages were deleted, emails were deleted. Something, yeah, something's hinky there. Bonnie says, "Are the bones human bones?" I don't know that we know for sure. If I think some of them are, but nothing's been proven that they're Teresa's bones. Hello, Liz in England. The lady lawyer. Are you talking about Kathleen Zellner, Stephen's lawyer? If so, she's still on the case. We've got Kathleen Zellner represents Stephen, and Laura Nyrider represents Brendan. Angie, that would be for the best for Brendan to go to Pete Dassey. I agree. Hello, Bonnie in South Africa. Huh. Maz. Maz says that she wouldn't be surprised if Teresa showed up alive. They would still keep Stephen in prison. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Ooh, I'm down to the bottom of everybody's comments. All right, so something else I want to talk about before I go. We've been on for over an hour now. So we do have our upcoming rally, which is the last Saturday in July at Waupun Correctional, where Stephen has been for years. So it's on the 31st. There is like an air and water show that is going on the same weekend we are there. So finding lodging is tough. So the sooner you book a room, if you are going and staying there, the better. Or Airbnb. That's what I did. I got an Airbnb. So book it ASAP if you're going to be there. I booked it for Friday, Saturday, and then I leave on Sunday. But the rally itself will be on Saturday. So book your rooms. And then I'm thinking last year we were at the prison at 2 p.m. So that way, when I did a Facebook Live from the prison, it's at, because it seems to be around this time, so it's 2:15 here now, so it would be around this time. That seems to be the best time to be doing it for all the different time zones. So we would have the rally at Waupun around this time on the 31st. And it's only like an hour. You don't ask people to stand out in the heat for a long period of time. Party over here. Bryce is coming. Bryce will be there. If you want to meet Bryce, he's coming to the rally. We also possibly have a special guest. They have told me that they think they can do it, but they're still trying to get that all finalized and said they should tell me this weekend. So we may have a special event with that person. It's also very hard in saying anything about our rally or anything that we do because there are people, guilters, Bobby Dassey fans, who then try to sabotage whatever we try to do. So, so like they've called around to hotels in the area trying to make it so to block people from being able to rent from there. Dirty tricks. So that's why you're going to have to fend for yourself, I guess, on your lodging and just find you don't have to get something right in Waupun. There's lots of stuff in the area that, so I believe where I'm staying, it's a 20-minute drive to the prison from where I'm going to be. So, just get it booked, and I'm sure if the person does confirm and we go put out publicly that this person is going to be there and we're going to have this event, then people are going to try and sabotage that as well. But whatever. So we don't have a for sure itinerary for the day because waiting to hear from him or her or them or they or me. So hopefully next week we'll be able to get a schedule finalized on everything we're going to be doing that day. And I'm also going to be posting, we designed shirts. Shirts are a dirty business because people are always accusing or using the sale of shirts to make money for themselves. So I'll make a post today on how you'll be able to order this shirt that we made. It's a simple shirt. It's a gray shirt. And then it says, guessing is not confessing across the top. It's got the phoenix that Jeff had designed to look like a firebird for the car that we use to represent Steven. And then it says, never give up. That's it. That's all it says. Very simple. And shirts are $25. The $25 includes shipping to the state. Well, and it's $25 for size small to extra large. Then if you get a 2X, it's another $1, 3X, and because the bigger the shirt, the more it costs. And then I haven't been told for sure what we're charging for international shipping. But what we're going to do is all orders will get placed until July 17. No shirt's going to be made until July 19th. So we'll collect all those orders and make all those shirts at one time and ship them out. Or if you're going to the rally and you want to save that shipping cost, I can bring the shirt and give it to you. The profit of those shirts is going to go towards the cost of the rally. It's not going to me. It's going to go for either rally goers will all meet for dinner, and whatever money made will go towards paying the bill for that dinner, and or it will go towards the cost of our special guest. So that's where the money is going. Last year we sold shirts and masks, and the money made I put in Steven's commissary and Brendan's commissary. This year the money is going to the rally goers. And we will keep it completely up, so when the sales end on July 17th, we will show you how many people ordered shirts and what money was made. And then if it goes for a dinner, I'll show you the receipt of the dinner. I'll show you the receipt if I'm paying for the special guest to be there. So we'll post that today. Yeah, I know, Kat, dirty word with all the drama around them. But I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. No matter what, somebody's going to find something to accuse me of being a bad person. So we're doing these shirts, and hopefully this will help pay for the dinner for people that come to the rally. I'm scrolling back to see if somebody said something that I missed. Angie talks about being in England, so she can't be at the rally. We will have things that we want you to do who are not able to be at the rally that day. We want you to make a sign. So if you were to be at the rally, what sign would you hold there? So still make that sign. Or if you order one of the shirts and it gets to you in time, or buy yourself a t-shirt and write stuff on the t-shirt, take a picture of yourself with that sign. Or if you don't want to be in the picture, I get it when people don't want to. So there's times like with the rally sign, I've put it with my dog, I've put it with my cat, and taken a picture of that. We want you to take a picture of you and your rally sign, or whatever you want with your rally sign, and we will have a thread here on Stephen Avery Project for all the supporters around the world to post their support of Stephen. And I want you in your post to say where you are posting from. So one day when Stephen is home and he's able to learn the internet and come onto this page, he'll be able to find the thread and see all the supporters he had and see all the different locations. So, and then we'll also be doing Facebook Lives from the rally. So you'll be able to watch us at Waupun. We're going to have a happy hour. We'll go live from there. And if we do have the special guest, we're going to do a live with them. So y'all will be included too. Oh, they've never had anything. Holly's pointing out that the Three Stooges don't have a single thing on the circuit court access, not even a speeding ticket. Yeah, that is interesting. Bonnie asked, who do I think killed her? I think whatever happened to Teresa Halbach, it was at the hands of Bobby Dassey. Bobby has the motive. Bobby has the beans. I absolutely think it was Bobby Dassey. Mass says, I want to see y'all eating squeaky cheese. Wisconsin, dairy state, cheese curds, delicious. There is a place on the way to Manitowoc from my house, Mars Cheese Castle in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Have the best cheese curds. And you know they're fresh if when you bite them, it squeaks. Cheese curds are a must, Maz. It's happening. Bryce wants me to keep the secret person, the special guest, a secret. But I bet you Bryce will message me and ask me who that person is, won't you, Bryce? Magic Mike. It's Bryce. Bryce is going to go all Magic Mike at the happy hour for us. May need water bottles. Yeah. We'll be prepared. Deneen, those shirts are awful. And I had to show them to Jeff. So my boyfriend, well, I guess technically my fiance, because we're getting married in a couple weeks, owns a print shop. And so I had to show him those shirts because, it drove him crazy because there's all these different fonts and it just drove him crazy. Angie, anybody can write a letter to Stephen and Brendan. There are pinned posts on this page where we have the addresses to both of them. So you can write to Stephen and Brendan. I always advise people to also write on your letter, write your return address, because remember, all correspondence with inmates, they just tear those letters open and read them before they're passed on. So your return address could get ruined. But especially if you're writing Stephen, chances are you will not get a letter back. And again, difference between fans and supporters. Don't write to them just because you want a letter back and then get mad at them if you don't get a letter back. They get lots of people who write them letters. They can't respond to everybody. You have to remember both of these guys have low IQs, that they don't have the best grammar, and that they've been burned so many times by people. So they don't write to everybody. Brendan writes to more people than Stephen does. Brendan really cares for his supporters. And so he typically wants to write to everyone back, but it's also just not possible. So don't write to them and get mad if you don't get a letter back. Write to them because you care about them and you just want to give them a bright spot in their crappy day. So you can tell them that you support them and believe in their innocence, but don't try and make it all weepy and sad. So tell them who you are, where you're from, what you like, that kind of thing. You can include pictures. I've done things too where I've typed letters from my computer and included pictures that I got from the internet and just pasted into my letter. So you can do that. You can't have stickers or glitter and stuff like that. But yeah, so feel free to write to both of them. Joe, why would he not respond? And I've already answered that. Hopefully you heard that. Is can't write to everybody. There's so many. It also costs them money to write you back, and you can't send them a self-addressed stamped envelope. You can go online. I can't remember where it is. I mean, you can put money in their commissaries, and there's a thing online too where you can buy stuff for them. I don't remember if you can still buy envelopes for them, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a response from them. And they've had people sell their letters. So sometimes people have written them quite a bunch of times before there's a response. It needs to build up a rapport and trust. So, and then they're also manipulated by people. And in Brendan's case, his mom controls who he talks to. And if she finds out that he talks to somebody that she hasn't approved of, she puts an end to that. Stephen, nobody's controlling him, but he does have people that will tell him lies. And it's people he thinks he can trust, and they're lying to him. So it's all drama. Yeah, Deneen, Mars Cheese Castle. Oh boy. I will be stopping there on my trip up and probably my trip back. Okay, Debbie, what that is addressing Stephen talking about the rally and the shirts is not what we are doing. It is what Carla is doing. The one that she's doing at the courthouse. And the awful green shirts that she has made using his name. Stephen has told Carla time and time and time and time again that she is not allowed to use his name in selling anything. And that Carla lies to people and says the profits of these shirts are going to Dolores, and it doesn't. So he is not talking about the rally we're doing or the shirts now that I just mentioned today. Because I'm not claiming the shirt money is going to Dolores. I don't know what Stephen knows about what we're doing. But I also know people lie to him about what I do. So, but the shirts we're doing, the money's going to go towards the rally goers. So that's that. Absolutely, Angie. Go for it. Tell them how much you support them and that you're behind them and believe they're innocent. Maz, how's your butterflies doing this year? I haven't seen a caterpillar yet. I attempt to raise monarch butterflies, and I haven't seen one yet. I've got tons of milkweed. Please plant milkweed somewhere. If you're here in the States, monarch butterflies need that to survive. And I can't even count how many plants I have. They're perennial and they spread. I mean, weed is in the name. It's a weed. But I haven't seen one yet. So knock on wood, we get some butterflies. But speaking on butterfly, before I go here, Melissa Kaluzinski, that is another case of Kathleen Zellner's. Melissa is somebody, I love her so much. Melissa's case is a cross between both Stephen and Brendan's. Melissa has lower IQ. Melissa was forced into a false confession for a murder she didn't commit. And she has been in prison now for 12 and a half years. I finally got to visit her. I went last week. And first time I have visited her since March of last year. The last time I visited her, when I signed in, it was a bunch of COVID questions, because it was the beginning whole thing so it was stuff, have I had a fever? Have I been around anybody with COVID? All that. And then the very next week is when they shut it down and didn't allow any more visits at the prison. So the only contact I've had with Melissa for the last year and a couple months has been through email. They started back visitations at her prison this month, but it was very weird. So they didn't want you to wear a mask coming into the prison because when I first walked in, I had to take one of their masks. They had a box of masks. And also you had to put your head to, there was a temperature machine, so nobody holding it. So I had to go up to it and put my forehead there so they could take my temperature. And so then I signed in and got searched like usual. And then they took me to the visitor's house like usual, same visitor's house as always. And so I sat at a table with Melissa, normal table like always, but they had a sheet of plexiglass on like a stand. It reminded me of like the Connect 4 thing if you were to play the Connect 4 game. And so the plexiglass on top of the table in between us, and all the vending machines are there, but they're all turned off, so you can't buy any food. And the visits are only 2 hours, and you have to register at least 7 days in advance, and there's only 4 different time slots that you could go. So I went, had my visit with Melissa. She's an artist, And I always push her to draw because it's something, take her mind off of things. So get back to drawing. And she loves butterflies, and monarchs are her favorite. And so I bought her a book because she'll email me of books that she wants. And so I had bought her a book like a year ago on all these different butterflies for her to draw. And so now she told me that she found a butterfly in the book that has her name in it. So she's going to send me a card that in the card she's going to draw the butterfly. And I've told her for years, because in case you can't tell, I'm like all tattooed, but I got this space open. And so I told her like 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago now, draw me a butterfly and I'll put it in this space here. And so she told me that, she found that butterfly that has her name in it. She says it's like orange and white. So she's going to draw it and send it in the card. And she says, or she also found this really cool monarch. And I'm like, you draw whatever you want. Draw them both. I don't care. Just draw me whatever. And I'll get it tattooed. And so that should be coming. We'll see when it gets here. And I told her also, this space here, when you get tattooed, it really hurts. I mean, I've got it done over here already, so I know, and I've elbow. But this one, yeah, it hurts. So when I get that picture from Melissa, I'll share with y'all. And that stuff I typically keep. So I've got a whole different page and group called Justice with Jax. You can see the name behind here. That's where I talk about all other cases. But I'll sometimes, try and sneak in Melissa Kaluzinski stuff here, because she is also represented by Kathleen Zellner. So when there's not something going on in Stephen's case, maybe you want to look into Melissa's case, because she is somebody else who is in prison for something she didn't do. And she was just a young girl with a low IQ that worked at a daycare, and a toddler died on her watch, and they interrogated her for hours and hours and told her, okay, we know it was an accident. Just say it was an accident and you'll go home. And so she says it's an accident, and she's been incarcerated ever since. And the science has proven Melissa did not do this. Because, again, her lawyer is Kathleen Zellner. Kathleen has done her own investigation, her own testing. There's so much to it. And I'm not going to keep going into it here, because I know a lot of you don't care to hear about Melissa's case, even though you should, because she's Melissa. Melissa's a really sweet girl. That's Melissa. 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 Melissa is so sweet. So when I get that, I'll show y'all. So, all right, I'm going to end this for today. The next time I will be live is Monday is when I'm scheduled, but not here in Stephen Avery Project. It will be back in the MAM Gossip group, where we have been reading Wrecking Crew. Natalie just messaged me. So we're almost done. So we'll be picking up. We're chapter 21, page 213 out of 361. So we'll be live at 1 p.m. Central on Monday for Wrecking Crew, if you want to join MAM Gossip. And Christopher, one of the moderators for Stephen Avery, Christopher is my moderator everywhere. He is Stephen Avery Project. He is MAM Gossip. He is Justice with Jax. Christopher, is the one that really keeps all this stuff going. Christopher makes all the events. So he'll make an event for those story times on Wrecking Crew. And he always posts them here on Stephen Avery Project too, to let you know to tune in on Monday at 1 p.m. Central in MAM Gossip for Wrecking Crew. All right, so I'm going to go, and I'll also get posted today the information and the picture of the shirt we've designed and how you can order one, and know that that money is going to go for dinner, or a meal, I should say, because if something happens and we don't do dinner and we do a breakfast or lunch or whatever, it'll go for a meal for the rally goers, and or any costs incurred with getting our special guest to Waupun. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining me. Investigation continues. Have a great weekend.